A lot of people love to count Lucid out, saying that the brand has already failed, but I think that's premature. They had their best sales year in 2024, selling over 10,000 units, and their first SUV and second model is just coming out, the Gravity. But most important for me in not counting Lucid out has been my personal experience with the brand. I've driven quite a few different trim levels of the Lucid Air, each of which have left me floored and shown me that they are truly at or above a lot of the competition in terms of quality, driving dynamics, design, etc. But in order to address the haters, Lucid came out with this, the Sapphire, an Air without restraint, a demonstration of what Lucid is capable of, and proof that in many circumstances and in many aspects, Lucid is unrivaled. So let's take a look at this 2025 Lucid Air Sapphire to see what Lucid is capable of. So how is Lucid going to demonstrate to the world their superiority? Well, how about the quickest accelerating sedan in the world? The Air Sapphire produces 1,234 horsepower, 1,430 pound-feet of torque, and hits 60 in just 1.89 seconds. But the impressive stats don't end there. 0 to 100 miles per hour, 3.84 seconds. It does the quarter mile in under 9 seconds, and it will hit its top speed of 205 miles per hour in under 20 seconds. This car is just insane, and it does all of that with a claimed 427 miles of range. And importantly, Lucid didn't just add really powerful electric motors to the axles of this car, they also made all the necessary upgrades in order for the Air to be able to handle those insane figures. Most importantly are the upgraded brakes. You get standard carbon ceramic brakes, 10 piston rotors up front, 4 pistons in the rear, staggered wheel sizes, 20 inches up front, 21s in the rear, and these Michelin Pilot Sport 4S tires were designed specifically for the Air Sapphire. Lucid also made upgrades to the chassis and suspension to make this a comprehensive performance upgrade and not just a change in straight line speed or stopping ability. And my big takeaway from their suspension and chassis improvements are that they still managed to keep this car very comfortable. This car makes an insane amount of power, it's insanely fast, but you can still daily drive this car, as we'll talk about in the driving portion of this review. This car is just so impressive and is truly an engineering masterpiece. And I think it is notable that we are getting such an increase in power and performance in this Air Sapphire, but we're not really losing any practicality. Obviously it has the larger battery pack, but so do some other Lucid Airs. And when I open the trunk, we do have this little storage device for the aero rim covers, because you can put aero covers on the wheels to eke a little more range out of this Lucid Air. But let's put that to the side. We have the same ludicrously capacious trunk as the regular Lucid Air, and even when we raise up this section, we have the same false floor that reveals even more storage. This is a huge trunk, really big, and it's the same story up front with the frunk. I mean, I can easily fit in this trunk, and there's still the false floor and the frunk. Another element about the brakes is the regenerative braking, so it's not actually the physical brakes, but this car has some of the strongest regen braking I have ever experienced in a car, and in the high setting, the Air Sapphire will actually decelerate at 0.3 Gs, so almost a third of the effects of gravity in slowing down this car. It's honestly the most aggressive regenerative braking I've ever felt, and the first time in an EV that I've actually felt like it's too much in some circumstances, and I've turned it down to the normal regenerative braking, because I'm always one to want more regenerative braking, and I love one pedal driving in EVs, but it's pretty aggressive if you just take your foot off of the accelerator in this car, and it will slow the car down promptly, which also just helps in stopping this vehicle because, again, it goes really fast. Visually, there's not too much that distinguishes this as a Sapphire at Lucid Air. It's a pretty understated upgrade in terms of design. We do have a more aggressive front splitter that does say Sapphire around the front, and this paint color has a lot of pearl in it. This dark blue paint is exclusive to the Lucid Air Sapphire and is the only way to get the Lucid Air Sapphire. There are also these blue brake calipers and unique wheel designs, but the biggest design giveaway other than the carbon fiber spoiler is the fact that it says Sapphire around back, which is pretty unique because all Lucid Airs have an Air logo with the trim level of the model on the C-pillar of the car, and that's normally repeated around back on the Lucid Air, but the trim level is super small and basically illegible unless you are literally leaning right up against the car. But on Air Sapphire, we have no such logo, and it just says Sapphire spelled out in pretty large font comparatively to what it typically says for a trim level right under the Lucid logo, so everyone will know that this is the Air Sapphire. if they're driving behind the car. So basically, until we get to talking about driving dynamics, the Air Sapphire is almost exactly like every other Lucid Air, which is an incredible thing because the Lucid Air from the get-go is an incredible car. And sitting here behind my ideal driving position, we can talk about one of the strengths of Lucid Air, which is just its size. I'm 6'2", and I have so much knee room and foot room behind my ideal driving position. It's absolutely absurd how spacious the Lucid Air is. Now, one thing to note on this Air Sapphire, it obviously uses the larger of Lucid's battery packs. Base models use a slightly smaller battery pack, and they remove battery cells in the rear seat floor of the car in order to give rear seat passengers a lower place to put their feet, and that gives you a little more thigh support. So my knees are slightly higher in this Air Sapphire than in, say, an Air Pure. That's really the only difference, and other longer range Lucid Airs also have that. But it is just so spacious back here. I'm always shocked how much room there is in the Lucid Air. Folding down the center armrest, we have a little bit of storage and a pair of cup holders. The cup holders are tiny. They're tiny in every Lucid Air. That's not a surprise. We have a little screen back here where we can raise the rear shade, and I can also raise my shade on my window. So we have peasant blockers in this Air Sapphire, which is nice to see because this is definitely an expensive car. We have heated outboard seats here, and then we can lower this to find a little bit more storage. And there are 2 USB-C charging outlets and Mac pockets. But again, it really is the space and the size of this second row that is truly shocking in every Lucid Air. And we have a pretty dark color going on in this Air Sapphire, but yeah, I'm always blown away by the size of Lucid Air, and it's no different in the back of this Sapphire. And up front, it is much of the same story. It is the same gorgeous interior found in all Lucid Airs in this Air Sapphire, although there are a couple material differences in terms of the trim. We have an Alcantara wrapped steering wheel to give you a lot of grip in case you're getting a little nervous on the track, say. There's some suede Alcantara on the door panel as well, and on the seats too, and the headrests also adjust a bit in case, say, you're wearing a helmet on the track. You can push them back and they will recess so that you have enough space for the helmet. But yeah, on the whole, this is the same gorgeous interior, and it is this interior in part that is one of the reasons I'm so impressed by Lucid. It's just gorgeous. It's really simple. It's all pretty quick. You have a lower screen that controls your climate controls and your door openings and your drive modes and your charging and all of that. But that can also just be removed by sliding your finger forward to reveal a pretty good amount of space. You have some physical controls for your temperature and your airspeed and your volume. So that's great that you never really have to use this lower screen if you don't want to. Your infotainment system, it's kind of small, but it does CarPlay and Android Auto. So everything I need it to do. Big, crisp instrument cluster that shows me my range and my speed. And then on the left, a few shortcut controls. Pretty elegant, pretty easy. And the balance they've struck between elegance and minimalism is absolutely perfect. This really does give California Startup. It reminds me of like an Apple product, both minimal, but also elegant, and it's just really beautiful and easy to use. And the build quality is really high too. Like, I know early Lucid Airs, I think they had some production issues, but that is no longer the case. Everything is super sturdy. Everything feels really good, super high quality. Steering wheel feels good. The buttons feel good to press. And it's all put together well too. There aren't really big panel gaps on the inside. I love this like open pore wood trim. It's a gorgeous interior that definitely adds to this car. It adds to every Lucid Air, and this Sapphire is no exception. But enough talking about the amazing things that are similar between this Air Sapphire and all other Lucid Airs, because I have other videos on Lucid Airs that you can go watch if you want. Let's get into what makes this car so special. Its insane power and its driving dynamics. All right, driving the Lucid Air Sapphire on a twisty road now. I'm not going to be pushing it all out, but I will go into the Sapphire drive mode to try and get a little more performance out of this car. So the different drive modes do affect the amount of horsepower that the Sapphire will produce in Swift and Smooth. So Smooth is the base kind of everyday, day-to-day driving drive mode, and then Swift is one up from that. It produces 767 horsepower, still bonkers fast. In Sapphire, it produces about 1100 horsepower, and I'm in Sapphire mode right now, so woo! Definitely still very fast. And in then track mode, it produces the all-out 1234 horsepower. And in track mode, there's a few different drive modes. There's the drag strip drive mode, which is where you can optimize the battery for quarter-mile performance. Then there is also, let me just switch over to see, there's also a hot lap drive mode and an endurance drive mode. And on hot lap drive mode, I think it does drop the horsepower a little bit. I think probably to the Sapphire drive mode horsepower output. And in the endurance drive mode, it drops it back to what you get in smooth and swift, 767. So in Sapphire mode, I'm going 50, floor it. Oh my God, we lost traction for a second, and we're going so much faster. Versus, let's now go back into Swift mode, 767 horsepower, and when I get a straightaway, I will do that same thing. We're going slightly downhill right now, but it should be a somewhat even comparison. All right, 50, floor it. All right, yes, there is a difference. You're still getting the instant power, and being able to tell the difference between instantly receiving 767 horsepower versus 1100 or 1200 horsepower, that difference is less noticeable. You can notice it. You're definitely getting more power when you get in Sapphire mode and you floor it. But what you really notice then is the moment after you receive all that power. In the smooth and swift drive modes, you kind of lose your momentum, you lose your acceleration a little noticeably quicker than you do in the Sapphire. The Sapphire mode and the track mode, you just keep accelerating at bonkers levels. There's so much power when you unlock it all. When you don't, you more notice it after that initial takeoff, especially at higher speeds, that then the car isn't pulling away as much as it would be in those other drive modes. But still, the instant torque you get out of flooring this car is definitely crazy no matter which drive mode you're in. Taking some corners here in the Air Sapphire, and again, I'm not pushing it that hard because it's a little cold out right now. It's like 50 degrees, and this car weighs 5,300 pounds. And, you know, Lucid does a pretty good job masking that. A lot of that has to do with the insane amount of power that this car produces. It just doesn't feel heavy. It doesn't feel like this car is straining at all to change your velocity at any time. Even when you are going quickly, going highway speeds, it is still jarring how fast this car accelerates. And I think that is expressed in some of the figures about this car. 0 to 100 miles an hour in 3.8 seconds, 0 to V max to the top speed of this car, which is 205 miles an hour, in less than 20 seconds. This car is just insanely fast. And so that really does help mask the weight. But that's in a forward and backward setting. Around corners, the car does still lean. You know, I'm shocked by how comfortable Lucid has made this vehicle. You can so easily daily drive a Lucid Air Sapphire and not worry about it being too stiff, too harsh. It's not at all. It is still a very comfortable daily driver. It has a really good ride. I'm actually really impressed by that. And the chassis is still noticeably tighter than in a traditional Lucid Air. It does feel athletic, but going around corners, I am getting some lean. Like, there's just no masking that. 5,300 pounds is still a lot when talking about a performance vehicle. And you feel it a little bit in the corners. Definitely more set up for performance than the other Lucid Airs, but this isn't some lightweight sports car. And then when you go into, say, track mode on a highway, freeway, on-ramp, and you floor it, holy mother, lordy lord, you get the power all the way. And even going, say, 70 miles an hour and then flooring it, holy balls, you just rock it forward still. It's just crazy. Okay, and then you have all of that, right? You have everything we just talked about, like pretty good handling, just insane power. And then you get on a freeway, you go into smooth mode, and it's just as comfortable, quiet, and supple as every other Lucid Air, which is exactly what you would want. on a freeway setting, this vehicle isn't compromised by its performance at all. The only thing that you lose is a bit of range, because this car is just so powerful, it cannot be as efficient as the other Lucid Air models. But you still have 427 miles Lucid claims. I don't think you're going to be achieving that if you are flooring it, and that's in smooth mode. My God, is it fast. This car is just insane. There are massaging seats too. Some of the programs are not that good. Some of them are just like literally the seat vibrates. Other of them have more of a traditional massaging seat function, which I quite like. The seats themselves are comfortable. We have an Alcantara steering wheel. Pretty good cruise control settings. There's no like hands-free driving assist on this car. Like, it will steer for you, but you have to keep your hands on the steering wheel. There's no like Super Cruise or Tesla Autopilot or stuff like that. But it's so astounding to me how a car that is so fast and so able to accelerate quickly, you know, its tires, its suspension, all of that are set up for it, but can also be so comfortable. And we were cornering up there in the mountain decently quick. Like, I was kind of dialed back a bit, but we were still going at a decent clip, and this car was handling it great. It does hang on in the corners really well, but then over bumps, there's a lot of give in the suspension. Exactly how you would want. The steering becomes a lot looser in smooth mode, and it tightens up nicely in the other drive modes. And going 75 miles an hour, there's some wind noise, as I said, but barely any. You can kind of hear the cars around you, but God, is this a comfortable road trip vehicle. And I've taken a Lucid Air on a road trip, the Lucid Air Grand Touring, and it was amazing in that regard. I also really like that we don't have a glass roof. So like, you're not losing any of Lucid's and the Air's great characteristics when you go for the Sapphire. You are just gaining incredible power and the other mechanical differences needed in order to make that power acceptable, like bigger brakes, like stiffer suspension, all of that, and these crazy wheels and tires. Now, $250,000. Is it worth that? Well, if flooring cars and just teleporting through traffic is what you want to be able to do, and you get a hoot out of just changing your velocity with insane rapidity, then yes, this car does it better than anything else. But if you're fine with quick and you really just like the Lucid Air, well, you're gonna get a lot more for your money going for a less expensive Lucid Air. The Pure is personally still my favorite Lucid Air, or not my favorite, but the one I would buy. If I was actually spending my own money on a Lucid Air, you're getting 90% of the Lucid experience for a fraction of the cost. That car starts at $70,000. I would get the 20-inch rims because I think they look better, and maybe a fun paint color and the stealth appearance package. But you're still getting everything you see here, this cool lower screen that will go away at the push of a button or at the slide of a finger, this beautiful instrument panel, the gorgeous looks of this car, the incredible spaciousness of the car, and efficiency at every single trim level. You get all of that for $70,000. So to then spend $250,000 on a car that is essentially just that, but then also bonkers fast, that is a little steep in my opinion. I think at $175,000, this car would be like, oh my God, that's insane that you're getting this much car for that price. But at $250,000, it starts to get really up there. Now, that being said, even though I would personally buy a Lucid Air Pure and then just get a sports car on the side, my two-car solution is a Lucid Air Pure and a Lotus Emira. So I just get those two and still have about, you know, 70 grand left over. But this is the best Lucid Air I've driven, without a doubt. The all-around nature of this vehicle, that it can literally do anything, is really, really impressive. And the amount of engineering, and I've said this about every single Lucid Air that I have driven, and this is the fourth one now. I've driven two Pures, a Grand Touring, and this Sapphire. I am consistently blown away that this first generation product is so good. This blows Rivian out of the water, and I've said that before. Rivians are great. They have a few problems though. The suspension is stiff, it's a little loud in there. They just haven't quite figured everything out yet in the Rivian. It's close, and for, again, a first generation, and I guess they're on their second generation now, is still really good and definitely blows some traditional OEMs out of the water. But this Lucid Air has always impressed me far more than Rivian has. It is an astounding product, and Sapphire is without a doubt the ultimate Lucid Air. And then this Sapphire is really just Lucid's bragging rights, I feel like, hey, look at what we can do when we really try, when we don't care about how much it's gonna cost, and just create the ultimate product. And it's so impressive. This car is so impressive. There's really nothing wrong with it, other than the few complaints I have about all Lucid Airs. Namely, their A-pillars are super thick and their cup holders are way too small. Other than that, this car is just incredible. So that's the Lucid Air Sapphire. This car was built to demonstrate what Lucid is capable of, and it demonstrates that they are capable of a lot. This truly puts Lucid on the map as an impressive OEM, and I think an OEM that is here to stay. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.